You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there, I'm Philip Ideson, and today is Friday, July the 1st, 2022.
6.
Here at Art of Procurement, we're continuing to grow our Experts on Demand advisory business. As a result, we're looking to expand our network of experts that support our client projects. So if you're an independent subject matter expert with deep domain expertise in an indirect procurement category, or run a small boutique procurement consulting business and may have an interest in partnering, we'd love to hear from you. To express your interest, just go to artofprocurement.com/expert-application. That's artofprocurement.com/expert-application. Or you can see the link in the show notes for today's episode.
5.
In this week's podcast, adapted from a recent AOP live webinar that I hosted, one of our points of discussion was on how an organisation can benchmark its sustainability performance and the role that procurement plays in this. Adrian de Groot Ruiz is the Executive Director at the Impact Institute, a social enterprise that empowers organisations and professionals to understand and realise the impact economy. And so I asked Adrian in this AOP Live how procurement can go about understanding what good looks like when it comes to sustainability initiatives.
So the first step that we advise is that businesses make a materiality assessment just to establish what are relevant impacts, because they don't know. Depending on the countries you're at, in the sector, very different impacts will be relevant. So having that materiality assessment. Is climate the most important thing? Is it water? Is it biodiversity? Is it the health impact? That is key. And then we often see that 60 to 90% of the impact of a business is actually in the supply chain. So you have a part in your own operation, but the majority will be in the supply chain. And then interestingly, also, if you look at the market capitalization of firms, 60 to 90% of that, again, cannot be explained by the book value. It's in non-financial assets, reputation, social capital, intellectual capital, natural capital, the people. So that means that a lot of the value is hidden in your supply chain and in your procurement decisions. So that is where we say, well, there you want to benchmark your performance. And then, for example, so using in 2 ways, Anaplan. One is to make actually we have a global impact database that depending on the sector, country, you can see what is the benchmark, how good are you performing in terms of, for example, human rights, or in terms of, for example, soil quality, that you can benchmark yourself to peers in your sector. That is just the first step, because then you need to see for those impacts that are material to you, that are driving societal value, that are driving shareholder value, you have to measure internally in a good degree. And for that, you really need connected planning, because you need information from different parts of the organization. And in almost all cases, you will need to work very actively with your suppliers, because you will not have that data. So you need to work with your suppliers to actually understand your impact.
What stands out to me is there isn't one size fits all approach to this. It's obvious really, but you can't manage sustainability in one metric. So you need to start by understanding what is most important. Adrian cited water usage or biodiversity as a couple of examples, and then specifically benchmark those rather than trying to go too broad. You can hear our full conversation in the latest Art of Procurement podcast, wherever you choose to listen to podcasts.
4.
I was recently called to perform jury duty, and while I was sat in the courtroom, my mind always finds a way back to procurement. These trials are expensive, but what are the category dynamics behind the sourcing of expert witnesses? To find out, I read Procurement IQ's report on expert witness services and dug out the following interesting nuggets. Well, first of all, as you would expect, expert witness services are highly specialised. Each trial concerns its own topic, parameters, and nuances, and therefore requires a witness that can meet the needs of that specific trial. However, while that specialised experience can be expensive, it does only make up 1/3 of the total cost of expert witness services. There is a vibrant market of specialist firms who provide expert witnesses, so they may be valuing consolidating your requirements through a managed service rather than sourcing experts individually. During the past 3 years, the price of expert witness services has been increasing due to strengthening demand for market services. However, high market fragmentation, and what's really interesting, because it's a driver of the cost here, is falling crime rates have actually limited price growth. And with a large number of operators in the market, providers do compete on price to attract the buyers, which does prevent providers from unexpectedly raising service rates too high. As a result, while we said before prices have been rising, they've not exhibited significant price fluctuations, thus allowing buyers to budget accurately for expert witness expenses.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
Are you a Matrix champion? This week's tip of the week comes from Thina Walin, the Vice President of Procurement and Supply Chain at Schneider Electric, based in Singapore. We recently interviewed Thina in preparation for a speaking engagement at ProcureCon Asia later this month, and asked her if she had any advice on how to influence headquarters while working in a regional role. Thina advised to be a matrix champion. Use the reporting matrix to leverage your agenda. Being in the region and still reporting into headquarters comes with an important responsibility of translating regional business needs for the headquarters, as well as leveraging best practices from headquarters to fast-track transformations in the region. Finally, Thina advised to work on topics that are visible to headquarters that will make sure that you're seen and that your contributions are recognised, both at the headquarter level and in the region.
2.
This week, the England cricket team completed a 3-0 series win over the World Test champions New Zealand. It was definitely an eye-opening change in fortunes for England, who had previously won only one of their 17 previous matches. This change in fortune was driven not by a change in talent, there were no wholesale changes to the team, but by a different, positive approach and a shift in mindset. But what's that got to do with procurement? Well, I've had the pleasure to see and be part of and lead many different procurement transformations over the years. And more often than not, the assumed case of a procurement team that's underperforming its expectations is that the current team are just not up to standard. A consulting team often comes in, they recommend wholesale changes and abroad hiring initiatives. This is really expensive, it's time consuming, but is it necessary? Well, my experience then goes back and mirrors that of the England team. That's actually what the England team reminded me of this week, is that while you can make individual changes here and there, that may be necessary. If you're starting a procurement transformation, you need to ask yourself are you providing the right environment for your existing team to succeed in? Are you providing them with the right tools? Because it may be that you just require some tweaks and some technology investments rather than embarking on a multi-year transformation program. And if you don't look at that first, you can find yourself making some very expensive decisions when actually the fix was a lot easier and perhaps right in front of your face.
1.
The team at Art of Procurement has been hard at work planning our summer festival of procurement ideas, Categorypalooza 2022. It's completely live, virtual, and it's free. So Categorypalooza is going to give you the category level insights and inspiration you need to make it not just through the third quarter and the fourth quarter, of course, but to plan for 2023. And because we're using a virtual event platform rather than a webinar platform, you have the opportunity to engage in real time with our speakers, with the other attendees, and of course, the whole Art of Procurement team. Categorypalooza will take place on August the 11th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so we really hope to see you there. If you're not able to make it at that time and you do register, we will share with you all the recordings from all the different sessions. If you're interested, just go to artofprocurement.com/calendar to find out more. And you can find all the links associated with the stories mentioned today at the show notes page for this episode at artofprocurement.com/podcast.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.